Welcome, my friend, to Next Level Change Success. I'm Therese, a change strategist and practitioner with over 20 years of experience designing and delivering impactful change programs across various industries. In this podcast, I share real-world practical strategies to help you create and deliver positive change experiences, whether you're a leader, practitioner, or someone looking to bring new ways of working to life. In today's fast-paced world, change is constant. Here we focus on how you can put people at the centre of your change strategy, because people with a sense of purpose are the most important link in driving performance. So if you're ready to create meaningful change and achieve all the success that comes with it, keep listening. Together, let's change the conversation and take it to the next level. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Next Level Change Success. My name is Therese, and I'm founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that I am recording on Tharawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording, and to elders both past, present and emerging. So today I want to share about some of the changes and insights that I experienced through all my years in change, because I believe, similar to most career paths, as you go along this change journey, you have so many aha moments about how you've approached change, or the models that you've used, the tools that you've used, and you just become better and better at it over time, depending on your experience, the range of change that you've looked to implement and been lucky enough to implement or participate in. And it really does help towards, I guess, the back end of your career when you've handled different change in different industries. It certainly has made me a far better people leader, a far better stakeholder in things, as well as a change leader, change influencer in all roles that I've taken on, whether it be change specific or project specific or in a subject matter area. And I want to share some of the key insights that I've had over my career, because I think it can be very, very valuable. And you might be living kind of the parallel to this, and it might either help you have an aha moment, or it might just have you acknowledge, yes, I've experienced that too. So let's go through it, because I think a lot of it also has to do with your life experience as you go through things. So in my 20s, the way I would approach change would have been more like slaying a dragon, and really needing things to be perfect, be a bit controlled. I would have planned to the nth degree, been really directive about the change and the approach. I think some of that comes from the confidence that you have in your 20s, whether that be genuine or not, or whether that be justified or not, but really that wanting to follow the process and make sure that that process was followed to the best that you could deliver it. In my 20s, which was quite a long time ago, but in my 20s, change wasn't even a thing. So when you were running a project or running a campaign or delivering something, it was very much about ensuring your stakeholders are on board, having to navigate and bump into walls, as I say, bump into the walls of difficult stakeholders, kind of be a bit exacerbated and overwhelmed when people just wouldn't help you out, try and figure out in this corporate world, what those stakeholder rules are. And luckily I moved from my first role to another organisation after a couple of years, which gave me good perspective on different cultures in organisations. Now, at that time in my 20s, I was more working in marketing, but definitely delivering project work. And so the blend of that experience, and as I said, because change just simply didn't exist in that time, the blend of those two disciplines has really formed up my approach to change even now, when it's much later in my career and later in life. The other thing in the 20s, I had a lot of energy. So a lot of energy really went towards developing things, making sure that it happened, sending out the communications, and I was doing all the doing. And that's very common when you're early in your career, because you think you have to prove yourself. You think you have to deliver everything, and that's how you be of service to others. And at times, and especially in my late 20s, definitely burnout was a thing as a result of that. Just that constant churn, And certainly when I headed into my contracting career, which was more into projects and change at that point, which was my early 30s, I was taking a lot of the lessons from my 20s, the stakeholder, how to work with stakeholders, and then refining that in my 30s. The underlying journey underneath all of it was I was also doing personal development work in earnest from about the age of 25. And so I was questioning my own belief systems, family systems, how does it work? And so as I was doing that work too, it just helped settle me in a bit around my professional career. And always questioning, if I had a hard stakeholder, what's the lesson in this for me? What can I do differently? What's showing up for me? Is this something that's shown up for me before? And you'll be familiar with that type of questioning that I've just mentioned if you've listened to one of my earlier episodes in this season 4, where I talk about the opportunity you have to learn more about yourself through delivering change and how that works. And so the gear shift that happened in my early 30s was I went overseas. So my environment was very, very different from my career perspective. I was questioning even more because I was so curious. I was working in a totally different country, still working in financial services, but rolling out project and change work in a different country meant a different language, meant a different framing on business and how that worked. And so I really, through my early 30s, got such a big opportunity. And I always think I'm very, very blessed that I could do this. But I did pack up my whole life into just a backpack at the age of 30, which seemed insane to be doing that. But the visa had changed where I could actually do the work holiday visa thing at the age of 30 to 31. So I decided I'd do it. I hadn't done it in my early 20s and I really wanted to travel. So went over, thrown completely in the deep end, and was able to get some really good contract work out of that, working for big financial services organisations and across countries. Now, I wasn't, I would say I was a bit of a naive Aussie, and I think that was probably the best way to be because, as I said, I've been doing personal development work, so I just had this curiosity to learn through the experience, and it wasn't all easy, it wasn't all like lollipops and rainbows. It was absolutely hard at times, very lonely at times. I made some great friends who are family, really, during that time. I was single during that time, so it made it easier to be able to do what I wanted to do, which I think really helped as well. And I just had and absorbed the experiences and was grateful the whole time, knowing that I think within that very short period of time, of about 18 months that I did this, that I was really immersed and appreciating culture, history, because obviously Europe and the UK have such deep history, and understanding that and appreciating that, learning about that, and then coming back to Australia when the GFC hit. Even though my intention was to stay over there, because of visa restrictions, I came back to Australia and I never returned. But that experience was just through my bones, and that experience just seeped into my bones. And I think it made me a better change practitioner because I could understand cultural differences better. And it just made me more of a chameleon to be able to adapt to different cultures, even though there could have been language barriers or language challenges. I was able to navigate and deliver in that environment. And then coming back to Australia, which I was still grateful for, reconnecting with family, I was a different person. And you might have had the same experience when you're exposed to something so different. You come back, you kind of go, yeah, well, I've changed. And you set your life up. And I certainly came back and set my life up very differently than it had been, what it had been when I left. So coming back career-wise and professional-wise, I just had different experiences and different skills. So going into other industries, having different skills, different projects that I could work on, I really welcomed, because I wasn't afraid of that, of going and stepping into the deep end. And I had enough foundational skills to be able to do that. When I came back, I went and did ProSci. So change had started to become a thing. And whilst I was managing a project, and I might have mentioned this in some of my earlier episodes, but when I was running a project, one of the things that I realised was that I had change managers who were working on the project. And sure, I knew communication, and sure, I knew how to do data migration. I had so much experience in that, both from the projects that I'd been working on and running. And I knew how to do the communications from a marketing perspective because that was my background. But then definitely what I did was realise that I couldn't talk to the changes about what I wanted from them because I hadn't done the job. I hadn't done a pure change job. So to learn the language and also to get another feather in my cap, I went and self-funded to go and do ProSci, which was a good grounding in change. It gave me another toolkit to use, even though I had been using various tools throughout my career to that point. So I found it very valuable. It was run really well by the Being Human crew, who no longer exist, but they did such a good job, and I really enjoyed the 3 days of being with like-minded people. Got the accreditation and then realised I couldn't apply it. So brought it back to the organisation. Obviously, I was managing projects at that time, and it meant that I could definitely clearly know what I needed to ask of a change person because I'd done it so many times. But I found that the tools were very comprehensive and therefore kind of felt a bit irrelevant in an ever-changing environment in organisations. But I had great aha moments. I never say that something's been a waste of time because it certainly wasn't. So it served its purpose. So in my 30s versus my 20s, where I was doing everything, like in my 30s, what I started to realise was that for change to be effective, you need to empower your stakeholders. You need to understand the impacts and ensure that the leaders in those areas understand it as well. Then heading more into leadership roles, as I was doing myself in the change space or in the different roles I was holding and people management space, I realised that all of the skills and experience I had lent itself to leadership, and that was very relevant for leaders. And in my 30s, just that grounding really happened. In my 40s, life took a lot of different turns. And through that, obviously, COVID hit as well. And one of the things, and motherhood as well, I won't say it hit, motherhood graced me in my 40s. And becoming a mother, also then we had the COVID pandemic. So many things had been realised about the importance of change for every single person in an organisation. And so in my 40s, what I really learnt was that sense of how do you create an environment for ownership of change? How do you support people to be able to flex during change and adapt? And a lot of what I challenge now is that change should not be a conversation about resilience. It's a conversation about adaptability and how to bring change into not just your DNA, but into the DNA of those that you work with. And that's very much where I find myself now, is teaching that and supporting people through that and understanding that very much. So if you think about, if you think about in my early 20s, I was doing personal development. I've been going to meditation courses. I'd been actually working through my own belief systems. I'd been reinventing myself. Through the pandemic, I changed my employment from being a contractor for so many years to being a permanent staff member, which meant I had to consciously recreate my identity because I had such an attachment to this concept of being a contractor. And then realising my identity in relation to being a mother, which how do you blend and integrate that into the world that is? All of these things lent itself to me making sure that I am going to be the best change practitioner and best leader and best person who shows up in an organisation to help facilitate and role model what change looks like. So if you can hear through that, the journey that can happen, and if you're listening to this and you're in your 20s, the sooner you start to consider that blend of really your self-awareness as well as in your professional career, and that being just one of many identities that you will have during your lifetime, and thinking, how can I blend and be me in all of this? Then continue to listen to this podcast, because we're absolutely going to keep deep diving on that and think about the change DNA that you're going to build by developing your change skills, going on this journey with us and with me in building your change skills, your change intelligence, and how that serves you in all areas of your life. Because definitely through my late 30s, early 40s, a lot of the question or intention I held was, how do I integrate this? How do I integrate how I show up with the change skills that I have and the way I approach leadership, the way I approach change, and be able to flex in that space and just have it all integrate into my DNA. And certainly the wisdom of years and experience does count. And it will mean, if you're in your 20s, I'm very excited for you. If you're in your 30s, I hope it's starting to seep into your bones around the importance of how you're showing up, who you're being, and really the importance of intention when you're working and intention when you're leading change. And then in your 40s and even beyond your 40s, this is just going to be a great trip and a great journey, because I've said it before, you spend most of your life at work and with people who you might find challenging, but the challenging people might be in every single organization you go to, because they're going to keep showing up for you. And it comes down to the lessons that you learn, the way that you live, the way that you treat yourself, the way you treat others, and that is what matters. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed a bit of that road trip through my career, the insights that I had that went from slaying the dragon in my 20s to how do I start to empower people in my 30s to how do I create the environment to do that. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Come to myvirtualchangemanager.com. We have a lot going on. Currently doing a big review of the site and exactly how I can help serve people best. So setting up some new courses. So check us out. There's definitely resources that could be useful if you're looking to develop your change muscle, for sure. And if you think that this podcast is worth listening to, I hope that you will subscribe, or you will recommend this, share this with those who you have a shared interest in relation to change, and that we stay in touch. Thanks for listening and have a great day.